All right, so thank you to our middle schoolers. Welcome back to our middle schoolers. Welcome to our high schoolers that have just joined us. We are here at LIFT, No Ceilings on Success 2022. I think this is now our third year virtual, so thank you guys for sticking with us. I just want to give a thank you to our presenting sponsor, Lexmark International Incorporated, as well as our partners for making this possible. Some of our partners are Fayette County Public Schools, the YMCA of Central Kentucky, Kentucky Skills University, Kentucky Higher Education Assistance Authority, PNC Bank, Be Full, and the Lexington Urban Young Professionals. For those who just signed in, please make sure you put your name in the chats for attendance. I know we have some Black Achievers that are joining. We want to also make sure we have our names for some of our giveaways that we'll have coming up shortly. But I'd like to introduce our next speaker for the middle school / high school portion of our program. This is Miss Miosha Williams. She is the Fayette County Public Schools Associate Superintendent. She'll be speaking to you about careers, giving you an overview of various careers we have. So if you can pay attention, and then we'll transition to the next part of our program.
All right, good morning, everybody. And I am so happy to be here to present just on an intro to careers. So before we start, I'm gonna ask everybody to just engage and be ready to answer this question in the chat. And the question is there a difference between a career and a job? And if so, what's the difference? Is there a difference between a career and a job? And if so, what is the difference? So I'm seeing a lot of people say that, yes, they think that there is a difference. People are saying that jobs is something that you do for money, career is something that you want to do, okay? Someone said a career is something you were born to do, okay. So a lot of tying jobs to money, career is long-term. And so, yes, I would agree with that. So when you're thinking about a job, we're talking about something that's short-term, something that you're doing to make money, but a career is really something that's more long-term and that you are really working towards every day for the long haul. What are you doing every day to improve yourself towards that? So this portion is talking about an intro to careers. And so I just wanted to make sure that we were on the same page about what a career actually is. So now that we know that the career is something that we're looking at long-term, we're about to go into some sessions where you're going to hear from people from various career sectors, and they're going to talk to you about what they did to work towards their career, what they do, and give you some different tips and information. And so here are some of the things I want you guys to start thinking about when we talk about a career and things that you want to look for and listen for. First of all, ask yourself, what is it that I am passionate about? And when you say passion, it's about what is it that if I had to choose something long-term to do for the next 15 or 20 years, I would do right now without getting paid. That is going to help you determine what your passion is. Because regardless of whether you're getting paid to do it or not, you love it that much that you could see yourself doing that for a very long time. Okay, so think about what your passion is. And if you don't know what your passion is right now, that's okay. But what you can do is you can start to try new things and find out new things about yourself to figure out what is it that I would love to do. So here's the difference though. Sometimes people mistake what they're really good at for their passion. So I'll give you an example. I have a good friend and her mom is a very good cook. She is very good at cooking, okay? But when you ask her, and people would always say, oh, you know, Miss So-and-so, you should get a restaurant. You should go into you should be a chef. And she said, you know, I'm really good at cooking, but it's not my passion, meaning I couldn't see myself doing that day in and day out. I like to do it when I like to do it on my own time, and I couldn't see myself just making that long term, okay? So really start to think about, Is something that I'm good at something I'm also passionate about, or is it just a hobby? The other thing that's really important is to think about, what are your strengths? Okay. And if you don't know what your strengths are, one of the things you can do is you can start to ask people who are really close to you, what is it that you think that I'm really strong in, or that you always, you can come to me for? Or what are those things about me that every single time you interact with me, you're gonna get it 100%. There's also some different free strengths finders programs out there that you can Google, so you can figure out what your top 5 strengths are. One that I have used recently, and it takes about maybe 15 minutes. It's called high5test.com, HIGH, the number 5 test.com. And it's free. And you go on there and it takes about 10 to 15 minutes, and it will give you your top 5 strengths. And it will also give you the opportunity to send those strengths to your friends and ask them if they agree that those are your strengths, and to give you feedback on that. Okay. So always be mindful of, what are you passionate about? What are your strengths? The next thing that you want to think about is, how are you setting goals towards your career? And what are those big things that, like, you start 15 years down the road? I want to be the top engineer in the state or in my region. So start with a really large goal, and then back it up and think about, what are some of those things that might need to be in place for me to accomplish that goal over time? Okay. And then you also want to think about, how can you make connections? How can you make connections and get some mentors in that career field that you're thinking about? So example for me, when I knew that I was really good at helping people, I started to think about, what are those careers that I really would love to do? And I landed on education. So one of the first things I needed to do was to talk to somebody who was also in education. Okay. So who do I know right now that's in education? Well, I knew my teachers, and I knew some people from church that were also in education. And so and just starting to ask them questions about, what is it that this career looks like? What do you do on a day-to-day basis? How can I help myself get connected in this field? And sometimes, based on your goals, like one of the goals that I set for myself is, ultimately, I want to be a superintendent. And so when I talked to educators, some of them didn't know anything about being a superintendent because they weren't one, but they knew somebody that could help me along the way. So sometimes when you say, can you help me with what I need to do with my career goals? They may not know, but you can ask the follow-up question of, do you know somebody that could help me with my goals? And I noticed in the chat, there are some people asking for the website one more time. So I'm going to type it in the chat for everybody. high5test.com. Okay, so there that is for that website. And if you want some other websites, I'm happy to give some other suggestions on free websites for strengths finders. So we talked about, what are you passionate about? Know your strengths, setting some goals and thinking big, making connections, but also outline, okay, what are the deal breakers? Because in every career, there are going to be things that either you like or you don't like. Some careers are going to require you to work long hours. Some of them are going to require you to travel a lot. So you need to think about, what are those things that, I'm just not willing to sacrifice, because that's going to help you also hone in on your career. And I'll give you an example. Within the education sector, there are people that choose to become college presidents versus maybe like a superintendent. But what I know about being a college president is that there's a lot of fundraising that's required in that position. And that's just a deal breaker for me. That's not something that I'm interested in. And so just because you say you want to do something within a field, you have to also be able to narrow that down to know, okay, what are some of those things that, even though they're under that big umbrella of what I want to do, this just isn't for me. And then lastly, what I will say is, it's going to be really important that you think about, how are you executing that golden rule of treating others the way that you want to be treated? Because at the end of the day, you can be the smartest person on the planet, but if you do not have the ability to work well with others, then you're only going to go so far in whatever career that you choose. Okay. So think about, how are you doing right by people? How are you keeping people first when you're thinking about your career choices? And just also a little nugget in addition to that would be, learn a language. Because, you know, there are always careers in every single sector that are looking for people who are bilingual. And there was a study that talked about over the last, 5 years, the request for bilingual candidates in different career fields has more than doubled. And right now, those top languages that people are looking for are Spanish speakers, Chinese, and Arabic. So doesn't mean that if you know languages outside of that, that it's not important, but those are the top 3 that are in high demand right now. And I'm actually a bilingual speaker myself, so I'm very fluent in Spanish. And it has helped me in my career throughout the years. So again, just to recap what we've talked about, we know that a career is something that we're looking at for the long term and something that we're working towards every day. We're also looking at what is our passion and what are our strengths. We're going to make sure that we're setting goals and thinking big about those goals. How are we making connections and getting some mentors in those career fields that we want to go into? What are going to be those deal breakers for us when we're thinking about careers? How are we doing right by people and making that human connection to help us with our career goals? And then what language might we want to explore to learn at a deeper level to be more marketable with our careers? And that's going to be really important, because when we go into these breakout sessions and we hear from our panelists, what you want to look for are those types of things, because I guarantee you that you're going to hear some similar threads from each of our speakers when it talks about maybe some of the mentors that they've had, some of the goals that they set, some of the things that they thought about in weighing whether or not a career choice was good for them or not. And so we're really excited to be able to share our journeys with you and to help you discover yours. And so thank you all for being here and typing into the chat and really being engaged. And we're looking forward to our next segment.
All right. Well, thank you, Miosha, for that presentation. I just want to make sure we don't have any questions. So if you have a question, please put those in the chat. I'll be looking for those so I can ask those live. But we'll have a few minutes. Wait, make sure there's no questions. Okay. We'll have a few minutes before our next session gets started. So continue to list the questions in the chat. We have about 3 minutes, and then I'll introduce our next section. I want to keep looking to make sure that we don't have questions. Make sure we get everyone all their questions answered. I think we did. Okay. No questions yet. Well, thank you, Miosha Williams. Again, she is was the associate superintendent. Make sure I get that correct, because I know she's changed roles recently, of Fayette County Public Schools. We thank you for that presentation. I think I learned some stuff too, even as an adult who has a career. It's always good to refresh yourself. So I hope that our middle schoolers learned about different careers. I hope our high schoolers are now thinking about their careers, because our next portion will help you kind of think even more through that process. Oh, we have a question now? Okay. Where can we learn other languages not taught in school? We have a few apps I know of. Duolingo, that came up. Do we have any other suggestions from people of where they can learn other languages that are not taught in school? And another question of, what if you are fluent in 2 languages? Well, for me, if you're fluent in 2 languages, that's a selling point. You can probably pick almost any career you want to if you are fluent in 2 languages. I would say, though, if you're fluent in 2 languages, make sure people know that. So as you're applying for jobs, as you're looking for jobs, look for those jobs that list that as a skill set that's necessary, because that's something that can use as a bargaining tool for you being the better candidate that they pick in the future. Let's see any other questions we have. Make sure. I wish I could speak 2 languages. I can make it up. Oh, okay. Miosha has answered as well. I'll read this out loud just in case people aren't writing from the computer. There are some great free software to help with learning languages. There's also some different social groups that meet from time to time and practice their speaking. I also will put in a plug for those. I know a lot of people don't think about ASL, sign language, as another language, but it actually is another language. I know there is a group at, I think, the Fayette Mall food court that meets twice a month. I think first and third Mondays or Thursdays they meet and they actually practice ASL. So I just want to put a plug there because a lot of people don't consider it another language, and it is. And in the spirit of understanding careers, we always want to talk about accessibility and diversity. So if you haven't considered ASL, that might be a language that you can learn at home in the privacy of your home that you don't necessarily need a whole nother app for, but there's plenty of YouTube channels, social groups, physical groups that are meeting, and as well as there's some paid programming as well. And it's a good thing you can learn with your parents as well. So thank you again to Miosha for that presentation. We'll start to transition into our next portion. This will be our career portion of the program. So I want to say first for our presenters that are presenting in this portion, as well as our volunteers, you'll start to see the breakout rooms open. We would ask that you move to those rooms first so that you all can get set up and get ready. Please give our students time to move into those rooms because it will just, you know how technology works. We got to work through those kinks. Some people may be thinking about what room they would like to go into. So please just be careful and mindful of that as we transition into that. I do want to read out the rooms that we have available. So 1, we have criminal justice and safety. 2, we have communication. 3, we have education, and 4, we have medicine. So you will have about 2 speakers in each of those rooms. You'll also have a volunteer that can help facilitate questions. I would encourage all of the students who are joining those rooms, have your questions ready. We'll have our speakers introduce themselves, give some of their background, and then we'll open it up for questions. So you'll start to see the breakout rooms open. You will have to pick your room manually. So please start to do that now as you see the breakout room. Also look in the bottom of your screen. You'll see a menu that says join breakout room. You can click that to be able to join your breakout room. Let's see if that works. Right.
breakout rooms. We want to thank all our breakout rooms, all our volunteers that helped in those breakout rooms, and we hope that you all were able to learn something interesting and are excited even more about picking a career choice. So right now we're going to go and give away 2 more laptops.
Somebody want to get on here?
And our question is, what is your takeaway regarding the career you just heard about? Type your response in the chat. They can't see me. What is your takeaway regarding the career you just heard about? Type your response in the chat. All right. Thank you for joining us for middle school students. Your sessions have concluded and you can log off for now. Welcome high school students. Everyone, please put your name in the chat as we get started today.